I'm gonna attempt to make a multiplayer FPS, but I have just 1 week. Why? Because every single tutorial on YouTube tells us not to make a multiplayer game as a beginner. And I started thinking, how hard could it be? To find out, I made a new Unreal project and named it Buttstabbing. You'll find out why later in the video. After I opened the project, I didn't know what to do. So I hopped into Blender and started working on the character. I wanted to make a human with some clothes or armor on it, but it didn't go as planned. And I made a pink ketchup bottle for some reason, but I went with the flow and spent some extra time getting its proportions right. We'll call him Mr. Squidgy. In order to have a game that's not broken, we have to put some animations. But every time I've tried animating, I wanted to jump off a cliff. So that ain't happening. But we can't leave the character just floating around in the world. That's kinda cursed. So I downloaded this free animation pack. It had more animations than I'd ever need. So why bother making things on your own when you can just steal them? While I was on Fab, I found this pack of weapons for free. So let's get some guns. Now we have the guns, but we need to make them work. So I added a basic line trace from the camera to a distance in the front, and when it hits the player, I got it working. It shoots now. But to make a working first-person USA simulated multiplayer shooter, we need to make it multiplayer. And Unreal Engine has this really amazing feature called Make Multiplayer, which you just have to click once. And I got the multiplayer working. For now. In an ideal scenario, when you shoot people with a gun, they die and fall to the ground. This is called ragdoll, which is basically physics, which is pretty cool. So I added a ragdoll to Mr. Squidgy and had a bit too much fun with it. Speaking of physics, I also did this. Why? Because if you look at it from a realistic perspective, this makes the character more physics cool. But there's one thing missing from the game, a map. We need a place for our Mr. Squidgies to fight. So I started making a block out of the map with these white boxes, and that looks horrible. But trust me, it's gonna look much better later on. So I went back into Blender and started making some props for the map. And that is when I made a big mistake. While modeling, I didn't look at the block out even once and messed up the scale of the entire map. So now the characters are too small for the map and their movement feels really slow. But instead of going back and changing the scale of every single item, I just increased the movement speed of the player. Then I added some decorations to the house like this fridge and these paintings, and honestly, they look kinda sick. Now technically the game is done, but there's no way to win the game. You just endlessly fight the other player until you get bored enough to sleep while the game is running, because there is no exit button either. And if I remember correctly, the challenge was to make a game, not a piece of shit. So I fixed that. First, I added a timer and a point system. Every kill gets you a point, and the player with the highest number of points wins the game when the timer runs out. Then I added some procedural recoil and these particles for whenever you shoot the gun. And after all that, it still kinda sucks. And the reason for that was sounds. If I were a citizen of the United States of America, I would just go out of my house with a mic and get some really cool sounds of shooting weapons. But I don't live in the USA, so I had to take help of Google and find some sounds for these weapons. After that, I added a main menu to the game, because you cannot play the game without it. And for some final touches, I added a secret feature to the game. Remember I told you there's a reason behind why I named the game Buttstabbing? That's because I spent a lot of time bringing the proportions of Mr. Squidgy close to perfection, and I couldn't let it go to waste. So most shooters reward you with more damage when you shoot someone in the head. Now that's boring as hell, so I made things interesting. I added Buttstabbing, where shooting your friends on their cheeks deals 2 times more damage. And be honest, what's more satisfying than sneaking up to your friends and shooting them on their asses? And now the game is finally done. So what comes after making a game? Playtesting.
Whoa! Ah!
And that wraps it all up. This is how I completed my challenge of making a multiplayer FPS in 1 week. Now, make sure to tell me if I won this challenge or not. Smash that like button if you liked the video, and if you didn't, please tell me in the comments what pissed you off. And have a great day.